Harrison Brunicke has greatly impressed so far this season with the Pittsburgh Penguins against many expectations, but is he the biggest blue line steal of the 2024 draft class? Because Cole Hutson's got a whole lot of upside.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I'm your host, Sebastian High, the USA Scout at Elite Prospects. And on today's episode, we're continuing our series of looking back at draft classes between 2020 and 2025. We're nearing the end of the show now. And we're looking at some of the biggest steals from each of these draft class among players that have a decent amount of upside. And we have a lot to look forward to here on today's episode, as we're going to kick things off with a nice little head-to-head, just like we did on our most recent show, pitting Emmett Finney against Zach Benson for the 2023 draft class in terms of biggest steal. And this time we're going between two players drafted much closer together, and both blue liners, with Harrison Brunicke of the Pittsburgh Penguins and Cole Hutson of the Washington Capitals. But we're not going to keep it at just that in this show. We'll also be talking about guys like Igor Chernyshov and Ilya Protas. So Washington Capitals fans have a lot to look forward to on today's episode. And finally, we'll wrap things up with a trio of skilled, undersized NCAA forwards with Teddy Stiga of the Nashville Predators, Justin Poirier of the Carolina Hurricanes, and last but not least, Will Zellers of now the Boston Bruins, drafted by the Colorado Avalanche. But before we jump into everything, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So for the first segment here, we have this head-to-head. Brunicke versus Hutson, two players that shoot on different sides and have very different frames. Harrison Brunicke is a mobile 6'3", 203-pound right shot defenseman, whereas Cole Hutson is 5'11", 172 pounds, and a left shot. And they got drafted within just a couple picks of each other. In fact, they actually went back to back. Cole Hutson went 43rd overall to Washington, and Harrison Brunicke just the next pick to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And two players that bring a lot in terms of intelligence, in terms of mobility, but very different styles. Harrison Brunicke is a real two-way beast. He's able to create a lot offensively, even if he's not the most dynamic activator in the offensive zone, whereas Cole Hutson is truly an offensive defenseman. This guy is the outlet every single time his team is under pressure in the offensive zone. They send it back to him, and he settles things down and creates time after time after time. Difference being, Harrison Brunicke is already playing in the National Hockey League. He has 1 goal in 6 games so far this year with the Pittsburgh Penguins, whereas Cole Hutson is still plying his trade in the NCAA with Boston University. It is his second season there. He's a sophomore. Last year, he matched Lane Hutson's point tally from his own freshman campaign with 48 points in 39 games with BU, including 14 goals. Do not discount his goal-scoring ability. He has a really good sense for when to let go of the puck in terms of timing it with flybys and potential tips in front of the net. And so far this year with BU, he's got 2 goals and 8 points in 7 games. And very different styles of players here. Cole Hutson is your all-out offensive defenseman. Stylistically does have some differences to Lane, but are quite similar both in terms of frame. Cole's a little bit bigger, as well as some question marks defensively. I would say they're more significant with Cole than they were with Lane. And at the same time, in the offensive zone, just being an elite level playmaker and constantly creating from the blue line and being able to shimmy his way past a first check, even a second check, in order to pull players out of the structure and create towards the slot. He's a very slot-focused playmaker. And these are both players that I liked quite a bit in their respective draft years here in the 2024 NHL draft. And I'll ask you, the audience, as well. Do you have a preference between these two players? Is there one that you rate more highly as of right now? I think that they're just very different styles. I'd probably give a slight edge to Harrison Brunicke at this point, but I was not one to underrate Cole Hutson in his draft year. I had a lot of opposition. I was still working at Dobber Prospects at the time when he was in a draft eligible, and I was pushing for him inside the first round and had absolutely no support for that take. I think David Sod was the closest thing I had to support for that opinion, but I did not really get many voices to push him high enough up our draft board as he would be in a redraft. And with Harrison Brunicke, it was kind of an inverse where I had some question marks, and my colleague and former co-host here on the channel and co-head scout at Dobber Prospects, Hadi Kalakesh, was the one that was completely buying the Brunicke stock. And he's looking good for that take. I think I'm looking decent for the Cole Hutson take. I had Cole Hutson ranked at 25th overall in his draft year, saying that he was and I'm quoting my write-up from my 2024 final rankings here, a high IQ defenseman with playmaking upside who excels at getting pucks into the offensive zone with control. Hutson may lack his older brother's dynamic offensive prowess, but he's no slouch in his own right. He was the highest producing draft eligible at the U18 World Championships among all skaters, not just defensemen, and came into his own when stabilized by E.J. Emery's reliable defensive presence and rush defending ability. Hutson still has a lot of growing to do as a defensive skater and in finding consistency in his ability to take time and space away from opposing attackers by leveraging his intelligence and strong stick work. But Boston University already have a very good idea of how to develop players with such weaknesses. Lane. I see an effective NHL facilitator in Cole Hutson with upside as a playmaker who, above all, consistently puts the puck in a better spot than where he got it, infusing a level of calm and composure in his team's play. While he's not a surefire NHLer, I'm willing to bet on his developmental runway, intelligence, offensive potential, and summer birthday. He was a July birthday for his draft class, so one of the younger ones in the class. There's a real fun top four piece here with good development. And I stand by all of this. I think I might be even more bullish now than I was at the time in terms of my stance on Cole Hutson's abilities. Like, he's just been he's been able to translate all of his strengths to the college level, and there's so much to like there, especially as a playmaker. He's just such a fantastic facilitator of play. And Harrison Brunicke is a bit of a different stylistic player, so I'm going to go and read what I wrote about him. And for context, I had him ranked 42nd overall, so right in the range where he got picked, but definitely not high enough with hindsight on our side, because he's not just a surefire first round pick. He's a pretty much surefire top 15 guy in a redraft. And I wrote that the combination of excellent handling ability and strong rush defending is enticing and rare. Brunicke's production hasn't reflected his offensive skill or potential impact. He's mobile and rangy, which he leverages offensively to protect possession and evade defenders, and defensively to take away space from rushers and patrol a very large radius. He doesn't shy away from the physical game either. His defensive game is, as a whole, more refined and projectable than his inconsistent offense supported by strong tools, but the handling provides a foundation to develop from. I'm a bit more skeptical in his true upside than other public scouts, but I could see him topping out as a two-way number 4 defenseman with flashes of flair. And I think that upside is now extending to more like a number 2, number 3 defenseman. I think he's really raised that ceiling, in my estimation, since being a draft eligible, and he was just dominant in the WHL here these past few seasons with the Kamloops Blazers, even though the production never fully jumped off the page. Like, even just this past season, he had 30 points in 41 games, but a guy that with high-end mobility, excellent rush defending habits, and that handling skill, right, that just like really jumps off the page. There's so much to build from with this guy, and he's not just a project. He is stable and he's reliable in both directions of the ice, and it's why he's already playing with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Like, he wouldn't be getting these minutes if he weren't reliable. I know he's been scratched a couple times so far this season, but definitely a guy that has earned the like borderline number 4 defenseman minutes that he's gotten when he's played this year, playing 17 minutes in multiple games here and really playing a role in the Pittsburgh Penguins, defying all expectations and coming off to a very, very strong start this season. I think that even though he's not as flashy perhaps as Ben Kindle has been among the rookies in Pittsburgh, I really think his potential impact long-term is as high or higher than Kindle's is. Like, he is a really exciting prospect, but Cole Hutson, man, that playmaking skill, the game-breaking ability, I'm very much not one to bank against a Hutson brother with the skill, the shiftiness, the creativity, the pace of thought. But the defensive game worries me a lot more with Cole than it ever did with Lane. The defensive just lapses in concentration, the wide gaps, the lack of ability to angle big, strong forwards towards the boards and protect the middle of the ice. Even though he is a really clever player and uses his stick very proactively, even defensively, I think he's underrated in that regard. I have more questions, and until I see him in the National Hockey League, I think that Brunicke gets the edge for me right now because the tools are so impressive with Brunicke. I think there's also a runway to improve offensively with this player. I'll give a slight edge to Brunicke, but I'd love to hear from you down below which of these two players you'd pick, because I think it's really, really tight and certainly fitting that they were back-to-back selections there in the 2024 draft class, but both certainly fell way further than they should with hindsight because yeah, both these guys have some borderline number 2 defenseman upside in terms of playing top pair minutes in the NHL someday. And that's not something you very often get in the second round of the National Hockey League draft. But that wraps things up here for the first segment. In the next one, we'll be discussing Ilya Protas and Igor Chernyshov for our next head-to-head of who's the more exciting power forward. But before we do that, a quick message from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. You just realized that your business needs to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page to help you reach the right candidates faster. I've been in that spot before where I've needed the right hire like yesterday. The pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a real setback. That's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs come right in handy. They make sure that your job post gets seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. All right, let's keep this show rolling as we've got another pair of exciting players that fell into the second round and shouldn't have been available there now that we have some context. And Ilya Protas fell all the way through the second round into the early third. So we've got Ilya Protas and Igor Chernyshov. We have one player I rated very highly in Chernyshov. It was 15th on my board in my rankings in 2024. And we have a guy that I was way too low on with Ilya Protas. He did not crack my final top 64 rankings or top 100 rankings, I believe. He was just an honorable mention. And that was a mistake. He just exploded as soon as he hit the OHL. But let's introduce you guys to the profiles if you're not yet familiar with them. Igor Chernyshov is a 6'3", 205-pound right shot winger, can play both on the left side and the right. He does prefer playing on his offside to open up shooting possibilities. And he was drafted out of Russia, playing mostly in the KHL with Dynamo Moscow, and last season made the leap to the Ontario Hockey League with the Saginaw Spirit as a line mate for Michael Misa, and he was electric. Over 2 points a game, 55 points, and 19 goals in just 23 appearances is ludicrous fantasy numbers. Like, this doesn't happen. And yet Igor Chernyshov did that. And so far this season, he made the leap to the AHL with the San Jose Barracuda as the Sharks drafted him at 33rd overall in that 2024 class in Vegas. And so far this season, he's got 3 assists to his name through a handful of games, with a pair of those coming in the opening night win against the Bakersfield Condors. But Chernyshov's a player I've always had a bunch of respect for. Ilya Protas is a guy that I had a viewing or two here and there, and I liked what I saw. I was mostly focusing on Europe, in all honesty, in this draft class as the head of European scouting at Dauber, still for the 2024 class, and didn't get my eyes on the USHL as I am this season, for instance. But Ilya Protas is a guy that really just came into his own last season as a line mate to Liam Greentree with the Windsor Spitfires in the Ontario Hockey League as well. In 61 games, he scored 50 goals and 124 points. In terms of last season in the Ontario Hockey League, if you're looking by points per game, these are two of the most elite players in the entire league. In terms of players that put up over 2 points a game last season, you got 3 of them. You got Igor Chernyshov with a stupid 2.39 points per game. Then you've got Michael Misa at 2.06 and Ilya Protas at 2.03. So you got 2 of the top 3 guys right there. And also Protas played a full season. Chernyshov only played 23 games, so sample plays a role here. But these were 2 of the most dominant players in the Ontario Hockey League, not just with their production and the offensive toolkits and the power game that they bring, but just bullying opposition, like men amongst boys on most nights for both of these guys. With Ilya Protas, 6'5", 201 pounds. He's a huge customer. And this year so far in the AHL, he's been adapting quite nicely with the Hershey Bears as well, with a goal and 4 points through 6 games. But this is a guy who is always there in support for his line mates. He's always keeping his gaps with his teammates very tight to just be there as an outlet option when they need him to be. He's able to really drive the net, play that net front role. But it's the playmaking that really sets him apart, his ability to find teammates in space. And last season, he really unlocked that goal scoring a bit more as well. He's got a good release. He's a big guy, got a lot of weight behind that shot. He was using that more last season as well. I don't know if the shot is going to be like a separating element in the National Hockey League, but to have both Protas brothers, who are both going to be, guys that should not have been available where they got them in the draft, is certainly a fun prospect for the Washington Capitals. And I think that Ilya might follow in the footsteps of Alexei. I don't think he's going to be quite as dominant on the physical side, but I think that the playmaking has a little bit more runway perhaps, and the goal scoring a little bit less. A different style of player, but also a guy that could really settle in that middle 6, maybe second line guy. I'd love to see them on the same line, even though they both do like playing down the middle when they're able to, but Ilya is certainly also comfortable on the wing. So having a line with both Protas brothers is the dream in Washington. But for Igor Chernyshov and the San Jose Sharks, this is a player that I have rated very highly for a very long time. From the very beginning of the season, he was a guy that I had outlined as a really special player. And to read you a segment from what I wrote in my rankings, a big physical winger with as much finesse with the puck as polished defensive habits. Chernyshov only scored 4 points through 34 KHL games this year, but was phenomenal in his shutdown defensive role, clogging up passing lanes, applying well-timed aggressive pressure, and playing a key part in exiting the zone with control. Offensively, there's real upside too. He's a great puck handler who blends it well with his mobility, strength, and reach to protect possession very effectively. He has a heavy release, threatening to score from range, and can equally score from in tight as he gravitates towards the net front, where his physicality and scoring instincts can run rampant. His fallback game is crystal clear, a third-line power winger who carries a lot of weight defensively and on a penalty kill and can chip in with some offense. But the top 6 potential, if he really hits his upside, should not be overlooked. My sense is that Chernyshov is a bit underrated relative to his projectable tools, refined habits, and puck skills. So definitely a guy that the more I watched, the more certain I became that he was not to be underrated. And I found that the public and Bob McKenzie's board and NHL scouts did underrate Chernyshov all season long. So very happy to see the progression he's been having with the San Jose Sharks. And between these 2 players, he's still my favorite between the 2. And I think that there's just so much projectability here. He's a much better skater than Ilya Protas is, which is going to help him. The defensive habits are more refined. Not as good as a playmaker, but I think the handling and goal scoring might also have the edge over Protas. But both of these guys are going to be really effective middle lane power forwards that settle ideally as second line pieces, but also potentially as third liners, but are most likely going to be right in that range and very effective for their respective teams. So another pair of players, I think that there's a real space for debate in terms of which one is going to have the better NHL career. So again, I pass the question on to you. Who is your favorite between these two players? But that wraps things up here for the second segment. And the final one, we'll wrap up the show with a trio of very skilled, undersized wingers from the NCAA with Teddy Stiga, Justin Poirier, and last but certainly not least, Will Zellers. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get 300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the entire app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many different ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during the games. Parlays are certainly my very favorite part of all of this because they allow me to combine different swings from different games and really combine predictions into one single bet in order to get the very most out of my money as humanly possible with the biggest potential returns. So, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com right now to download the FanDuel app today to get started. All right, let's wrap up the show here with three players that are a whole bunch of fun to watch and I have liked for quite some time. Will Zellers was the one that I wasn't the highest on in his draft year. Another guy I didn't rank in my top 100, but did get a few viewings of. But both Teddy Stiga and Justin Poirier were very clearly top 35 prospects to me, and they fell way, way further. Stiga all the way down to 55th in the late second round to the Nashville Predators, whereas Poirier tumbled his way down into the mid rounds and landed at 156 to the Carolina Hurricanes. But these are both players, all three players, with separating skills with the puck on their sticks. And let's kick things off with the guy that got picked first out of this bunch, and that's Teddy Stiga, a player that just plays with relentless energy, really, really good motor, and the playmaking and intelligence are so high end and have allowed him to just completely thrive in the NCAA so far since making that jump with Boston College. Last season as a freshman, he put up 14 goals and 30 points in 36 games and got himself the gold medal winning overtime winner at the World Junior Championships. Really, really big spotlight there for him. And so far this season, he's logged a goal and 3 points in 5 games with a Boston College team that has only gotten 2 wins through the first 5 games and has stumbled a little bit out of the gate. But Teddy Stiga plays a massive role in that team, playing at or more than 20 minutes on almost every night. And he's a guy, I think, who's just tailor-made for a middle six NHL role. He's got the pace. He's got the middle drive. He's not the biggest. He's 5'10", 179 pounds, but he's got the intensity, the motor, the habits to play down the middle in congested spaces, but he's at his best attacking off the rush. This is a very speedy winger, a guy that loves attacking at pace, really dynamic in his puck rushes, and that combination of speed, skill, intelligence, and motor is, I think, just a deadly one and helps so much to projecting to the National Hockey League. I wrote about Stiga in his draft year. I loved scouting Stiga all year long. He was regularly more offensively threatening than his teammate Cole Eiserman with the NTDP and created many of the opportunities converted by the divisive sniper. Stiga's a bit undersized, but his style of play compensates for his lack of size really nicely. His motor and defensive habits give him solid bottom six fallback game, but there's real second line upside here as well, potentially even as a line driver from the wing. His intelligence underpins every other part of his game and is core in his efficiency, consistency, and reliability. He'll continue his development at Boston College, where he'll get a chance to play and learn from the likes of Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault once again. And yeah, I think that Stiga has really just been fantastic to watch so far in his college career and was a gem of a pick in the second round for the Nashville Predators. But next up, we've got an absolute steal falling all the way down to 156th overall in the 5th round of the Carolina Hurricanes. That's an even smaller winger, Justin Poirier. 5'8", but 185 pounds as a right shot right winger. He was one of the youngest players in his draft class at his September 4th birthday, just 11 days off the cutoff for the 2025 class. And this guy was born to score goals and get underneath opponent's skin. Yeah, he's small, but this kid is feisty. He's mean. He plays dirty. He's difficult to play against on both sides of the puck. And he's got an absolute, gorgeous set of releases. This guy is a born goal scorer, and that has shown in the QMJHL and now as well in his first 6 games of college hockey at the University of Maine. In his draft year season, he scored 51 goals and 82 points in 68 games. The proof was in the pudding that this guy had offensive ability, and yet he fell all the way to the 5th round. And last season, he missed 10 more games, so he only played in 58, but he scored 43 goals and 80 points, one-upping his production from the year prior. And yeah, this year he's got 5 goals and 8 points in his first 6 games as a college freshman, playing top 6 minutes night in, night out with the University of Maine, who have been off to a pretty decent start with 3 wins, 1 tie, and 2 losses so far this campaign, and a lineup that certainly has big upside for this season and might even contend in the Frozen Four. And this guy is their go-to goal scorer already. He never should have fallen this far on draft day, and that is why I had him ranked 34th overall on my board. I wrote in my final rankings, Poirier is a bunch of fun. The pesky 5'7" sniper was the first player since Crosby to score 50 in the Q as a draft eligible, and he did so with one of the best shooting arsenals in this draft class. The puck explodes off his stick, and he doesn't need much space to pick a corner. As the season progressed, his passing and give-and-go game improved as well, showing an ability to build a play incrementally and create off the cycle as well as off quick counterattacks. He plays with violence and throws himself into as many puck and board battles as he can. While his habits need a decent amount of refinement and he will need at least 4 more years to develop into an NHL piece, the top 6 upside makes him worth the risk of missing out on an NHLer completely. He's one of my favorite swings on skill outside the first round of this draft class, as his ranking at 34 exemplifies. And he's only gotten better since then, and he would probably crack my first round in a redraft here as well. So a very exciting piece, and a guy that has certainly been proving himself year after year after year as an undersized goal scorer. But we'll wrap things up with yet another player who plays smaller this time. He has a slightly bigger frame, but he plays smaller, and that is Will Zellers of the University of North Dakota. 6 feet tall, 181 pounds as a left shot winger. He can play at center, but he's definitely a winger projection at the next level. And he was drafted by the Colorado Avalanche in the 3rd round at 76th overall in 2024. Before being traded to the Boston Bruins this past season. And that was in the midst of a dominant USHL D+1 campaign. With the Green Bay Gamblers, he scored 44 goals, 71 points in 52 games, led the league in scoring, won MVP as well. Just a dominant display here from Will Zellers last season, and he's kept that momentum running as well now into his college debut with UND, playing alongside a big draft eligible for this season in Keaton Verhoef from the blue line. They've been playing quite a bit together on the man advantage, especially where Verhoef is the trigger man, which is just a great throwback style to see. And Will Zellers kind of plays a bit around. He's played a little bit at bumper, a bit on the half on the opposite side, but he certainly is constantly looking for Verhoef as a shooting threat while he is focusing on playmaking. But Zellers is a guy I didn't rank, and I should have. I didn't really get around to watching the prep school boys that season, and he was playing with Shattuck St. Mary's that year, and he put great numbers, 57 goals, 111 points in 54 games. But yeah, he was really on my radar last season as I was watching a bunch of the USHL and And he was, in the regular season, at least the most dominant and like shift dominating player in the entire circuit. So certainly a guy to keep an eye on here in the coming seasons. I think that the playmaking, the handling skill, the speed with which he plays, they're all really significant elements of strength. And yeah, Will Zellers is a really fun player. So definitely not a guy to miss off your radar. And I think a fantastic acquisition from the Boston Bruins during last season, and the type of player that they need more of in their system. So I'm so glad that they went out and searched for that with Will Zellers, and he's definitely overperforming his draft slot as the 76th overall pick. I think in a redraft, you're easily talking top 50 in terms of just game-breaking ability. He's already playing second line minutes in the NCAA as a freshman on a pretty good UND team. So he's going to have a really nice platform this season to show off his skill and make a difference at a pretty high level of quality of competition. But that's it here for today's episode. I'd like to also ask you again once more to leave any comments down below if you're watching on YouTube. Let me know what you thought about the show and where you stand on some of these players. And if you're listening on a favorite podcasting platform, please do make sure to make us your first listen of the day. It's always greatly appreciated. And for your second listen, I'm going to head on over to Locked On Fantasy Hockey, where Flip and Steel break down everything you could possibly want to know to build yourself a competitive and sustainable fantasy roster. I'm your host, Sebastian High. Thank you so much for tuning in as always, and I'll catch you listening again very, very soon.